Good morning, Watershed. Welcome, everybody, on this beautiful spring-feeling day. Do not let it fool you guys. This is Fool's Spring. We're about to go into the muddening, is what I like to call it, when it rains and there's just mud everywhere. But for now, let's enjoy this beautiful weather. And if you would stand and worship with us, we would love to have you join us today.
Lord, I find you in the seeking. Lord, I find you in the doubt. And to know you is to love you, and to know so little else. So I need you. Oh, how I need you. We are going to introduce you all this morning to a new song, but we want to set it up first. So we always know that coming into this space, everybody is coming in from so many different environments, so many different contexts. The things that we are carrying are diverse. And I don't know about you, but this week my nervous system has been very activated. And I came across this quote by Margaret Wheatley, who's an organizational psychologist and studies science and all this really smart stuff. But she talks about chaos theory. And in chaos theory, it's helping me to reorient my relationship to what's coming at me, to help me understand what the powers that control so much of our lives are trying to do. And the chaos is intentional. But Margaret Wheatley says this: the chaos is great destructive energy that dissolves the past and gives us the gift of a new future. In chaos theory, it is true that you can never tell where the system is headed until you've observed it over time. Order emerges, but it does not materialize instantly. We're left in this sort of liminal space. And our fear and our anxiety can come and immobilize us in those spaces. And this song is about the story that we tell. There's this practice of gratitude that we can tap into that doesn't erase the fear, but it opens us up to tell a different story, to tell a new story. So it's also Black History Month. And for me as a queer Black person, this season just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. This season represents resistance for me. It represents deepening my education, understanding my roots, understanding the land that I came from, understanding how we've always been here. And so one of my mentors wrote what we call a woke Christian creed that I want to weave into the space this morning, because I think it really captures in the chaos, this is the clarity that I need. So Dr. Shaniqua Walker Barnes, if you want to follow it, should be on the screen. The woke Christian creed. I believe in God the Almighty, creator and redeemer of the world, whose power is constrained only by their mercy. In crafting the original blueprint for creation, God was not content to form one kind of creature, but countless varieties, each with their own beauty and vulnerabilities. Themselves genderless, faceless, and formless, God created a rainbow of humanity. Diverse in gender, hue, language, bodily form, and ability, yet uniform in our need for love, belonging, respect, and care. God imbued us with free will and the capacity to be co-creators, knowing it meant that we would have the ability to turn away from them, to cause great destruction to ourselves, one another, and the earth. And throughout human history, God has issued the call again and again for us to live as beings created in God's own likeness and image, for us to love justice, do mercy, and walk humbly with them. I believe in Jesus Christ, love incarnate, the embodiment of the divine on earth, who, having watched us mistreat each other for so long, decided to take up human form, not as the politically powerful, economically elite, or religious rulers, but for the most vulnerable of all of us. A baby conceived by a Jewish unwed teenage girl living under Roman occupation, betrothed to a carpenter who had no social standing. Jesus, our rabbi, suffered and experienced joy among us, teaching us what it meant to offer love, belonging, respect, and care to the hungry, the sick, the outcast, the lonely. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the great exaltation of God breathed into humanity at our collective creation, moving within and among us, not for our individual benefit, but for the collective good of all creation. She affirms our diversity, allowing each of us to receive the gospel in our own tongue and culture. She affirms our unity, gifting us with the capacity to speak in the universal tongue, one understood by the spark of her. She hears our groaning, the prayers too sorrowful for words, and she communicates them to the Almighty, interceding on our behalf. She sees our suffering and brings the balm of heaven, comforting, guiding, inspiring, and empowering us to embody the Imago Dei. I pray and I believe in the church. Would it exist not inside of walls of brick and wood, but in relationship where two or more are gathered to do the will of Christ, to comfort the brokenhearted, to make free the captive, to feed, clothe, house, befriend the poor, the immigrant, the lonely, to care for the earth and all humanity across the boundaries of race, gender, nationality, citizenship, ability, social status. I pray for the church to live up to his mission as Christ's agent for love and mercy in the world, to be a voice for the powerless and a beacon of hope for the hopeless.
The hour is dark and it's hard to see what you are doing here in the ruins where this will lead. And oh, but I know that down through the years I'll look back on this moment, see your hand on it, know you were here. And I'll testify of the battles you won, how you were my portion when I wasn't enough. And I'll testify of the seas that we've crossed, the waters you parted, the waves that I've walked, singing, oh, 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 my God did not fail. Oh, 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 that's the story
line says, all that is left is highest praises. And I think, and it says, sing to hallelujah to the rock of ages. And I want to just set that up again. I mentioned that sometimes we come in this space of fear, and we don't have it in us to sing hallelujah. But here's where that practice of gratitude comes in. Like this practice of praise is a practice of gratitude. It's the practice that we sing it when we don't believe it so that we can at some point believe it, so that we can begin to write the story. So I want to invite you into this next part. Even if you can't believe it right now, even if you can't sing it right now, maybe you can have it sung over you. Maybe we can sing it over you. And if you can, I hope you'll join us.
And all that is left is highest praises. So sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. And all that is left is highest praises. So sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. All that is left is highest praises. So sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. And all that is left is highest praises. So sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. Oh, my God did not fail. That's the story I'll tell. I know it. That's the story I'll tell. All that is left is highest praises. So sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. All that is left is highest praises. Sing hallelujah to the rock of ages. I'll testify of the battles you won. Sing it with me, guys. How you were my portion when there wasn't enough. I'll testify of the seas that we've crossed, the waters you've parted, the waves that I've walked.
Watersheders, you kind of know the drill. Whatever appropriate way you feel comfortable doing so, would you just say hello to someone next to you this morning? Thanks for being here. right. Thank you. Thank you. You can be seated. Thank you. Man, I love that part of the morning. The energy in the room is through the roof. I just need to correct the record. That was not my fault a few minutes ago. I was being looked at as though I missed a cue, and while that is normally true, I did not miss the cue, and it was all their fault. So I just want to, no, I'm kidding. Thanks for being here this morning. My name is Matt, and I'm the lead pastor here at Watershed. Sometimes I have to remind myself that. If you're brand new, can I just say thank you for entrusting us with this morning? It takes quite a bit of emotional and physical energy to leave the comfort of your residence and make your way here. I know some folks traveled as far as 45 minutes to be here. Some folks, sometimes the first time is a long drive, and I hope that this morning, whatever you experience is something that peels back the layer and identifies the thing that you needed to hear this morning. I really hope that's true for you. I know that's my experience almost every weekend as I'm a part of this. One of the things that's really helpful for us, if you feel safe enough to do so or willing to do so, there's actually QR codes that lead you to a Connect and serve page, or Connect and Grow page rather. And on that page, there's different ways that you can be aware of getting involved, but there's also a connection card, a digital connection card, and it's super helpful for us to get to know you. It helps us know maybe how you found us, but then also maybe some things that you're interested in. And so if you're willing to kind of engage us in that at that level, your first time, or if it's been a while since you've been here, or you've been coming for a while and you haven't done that, that would be super helpful as well. A couple of other things that I want to mention this morning. We've got several affinity groups, and I'm going to mention them. There's three of them actually. I'm going to mention all three in just a minute, but one of those affinity groups is called Kindred, and it's sort of this, they're a lively bunch. But you probably saw some of what they were doing as you were walking in. There's a bake sale and there's a coffee kind of bar in that room to your right as you're coming in. And all of the proceeds that you give in the consumption of those items goes to the work that they do throughout the calendar year. Some of the initiatives that they're a part of, our Pride Parade initiative, which is a big deal here every year. If you want free coffee, we have it in the back. If you want great coffee that actually has a cost attached to it, I just wanted to remind everyone that the free stuff is in here and the not free stuff is over there. So just be mindful of that as you come in this morning. And I would rather throw away a bunch of bad coffee because you purchased good coffee in there, just for the record. And then also a couple other things. Next Sunday morning, outside on the curb, you're going to see one of those giant, they're like huge RV blood drive bus type things. And so from 9 to 2, there's a blood drive that's going to be taking place here. I don't think I have a slide for that. You'll probably see more about this on social media this week. But if you're interested in being a part of that, you can come a little early at 9 a.m. so that you don't have to miss our Sunday gathering. You can stay a little late, or if you feel like, I'll feel free to step out in the midst of what's happening in here as well, and no one will shame you for that, I promise. And if they do, you come see me, all right? And I'll set them straight. And then also, Shed Students has a field trip coming up. It's an escape room experience. That's March 2nd, and if you have a middle school or senior high kid and they haven't signed up for that, you can do so by engaging the QR codes that are everywhere, or you can check in with Madeline downstairs, who's downstairs with our kids right now, our students right now. And then two last things. One is the affinity groups that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to try really hard not to butcher this because I've butchered it like 3 times already this morning. But there are 3 affinity groups. There's Kindred, there's the young adult group, and then there's the Prime Time that we are now calling Primetime 2.0. So Kindred is our LGBTQI community plus allies. Young adults is like 20, 30-somethings. And then Primetime, which is now being called Primetime 2.0 because they're kind of re-envisioning that moving forward, is kind of the 50-ish and above. Or if you feel like you are mature enough and energetic enough to be with that group because they outpace just about everybody here. Those are going to be regular opportunities to connect moving forward. Kindred is going to be always doing something post Sunday morning, the fourth Sunday of each month. Young adults will always be the second Sunday of each month, and then prime time will be the third Sunday. Did I say Monday or Sunday? Sundays. These are all Sundays. And so the slides should tell you kind of when those are, hopefully. But again, Kindred the fourth, young adults the second, prime time the third. Now here's where I'm really going to screw you up. I'm going to mess you up now, all right? So just take a deep breath. That all starts in March. It's happening February and March, but for young adults, it's, God, I hate this right now. Young adults. David Roberts, I curse you. Young adults happens the second Sunday of the month, except this month, it will be the third. All right? So if that's... David is like in the starting position to bail me out here. So if you're confused by this, there's a support group that I'm starting next Sunday that you're more than welcome to join. But no, starting in March, everything will level out until somebody decides to do it on a different weekend, and then that's the Sunday I'll resign. So, all right, and then two more things. The generosity in this community is something we continue to value. And I know people show up in different stages of life, in different situations. And all I can tell you is that the resources that you give are fueling so much good work here. Some of what you get to hear about when you're in preface is some of those nuanced things that we do here, not the least of which is all the recovery communities that meet here. We actually had another recovery group that is going to start meeting that uses Eastern meditation and yoga as sort of this fusion of healing that's going to take place here through the lens of recovery. That's starting here, I think, pretty in the next couple of months. But, and forgive me for being a little lengthy this morning, but I am just for the last several months, throughout the last 20 years, but more specifically the last several months, and more specifically the last 3 weeks, the amount of encouragement and validation for how important places like Watershed are in this moment in time is unprecedented. It's unheralded. And I was reminded of this last Sunday, and he hates being the center of attention, but he's going to have to just deal with it. Last Sunday, if you weren't here, David Roberts sat on a stool, and he fielded some of the hardest questions I've ever heard lobbed towards this stage. And he responded with grace and intelligence and directness. And there was somebody from Watershed that pulled me aside in tears and said, I don't know how to describe what I just experienced as anything other than the enormous safety that I needed given in the moment that we live in. And so David deserves a huge round of applause. And I hope this doesn't come off as manipulative, but resources matter in so many ways here, and I cannot tell you how much gratitude I personally have and how much our staff and this community has when you give. And so thank you for those of you who sacrificially say yes to us every month. That's so huge in helping us being able to predict how to fund certain initiatives, hire staff, provide just a basic foundation of keeping this building open and the work continuing to happen in and through us, and the transformation that we're all hopefully having together. And so thank you this morning. If you're interested in starting that process, of course, there's real safe ways to do that. There's matching programs here that I'm more than willing to talk to you about as well. But I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that this morning. And then lastly, you might have noticed this very handsome young man behind me. Yeah, I know. You can pay me that 20 spot later. But this is a friend of Watershed's that you probably aren't familiar with. His name is Shay Watts, and he and David are going to be sharing the stage in just a moment. But he's also a wildly talented musician, and would you give him a round of applause this morning? Thanks.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's going to be fun, David. It's going to be fun. So I want to play a song to set up our conversation, and I'll say briefly that this is one of the songs that has accompanied me on my journey, faith walk, life walk, when times are good as well as when times are hard, when I feel God's presence or sense it in the world, and when I don't. And so I hope that this song may be what you need it to be, maybe a word of encouragement or a melody to lament with. Jesus, Jesus, could you tell me what the problem is with the world and all the people in it? Because I've been hearing stories about the end of the world, but I'm in love with a girl and I don't want to leave her. And the television screams such hideous things. They're talking about the wars on the radio. They say the whole thing's gonna blow and we will all be left alone. No, we'll be dead. We won't know what hit us. Jesus, Jesus, if you're up there, won't you hear me? I've been wondering if you're listening for quite a while. And Jesus, Jesus, it's such a pretty place we live in. And I know we fucked it up, but please be kind. Don't let us go out like the dinosaurs or blown to bits in a third world war. There are 100 different things I'd still like to do. I'd like to climb to the top of the Eiffel Tower, look up from the ground at a meteor shower, and maybe even raise a family. We have 4 cats, but that counts too. Jesus, Jesus, there are those that say they love you. They've treated me so goddamn mean. And I know you said forgive them, for they know not what they do. But sometimes I think they do. I think about you. If all the heathens burn in hell, do all their children burn as well? What about the Muslims and the gays and the unwed mothers? What about me and all my friends? Are we all sinners? If we sin, does it even matter? In the end, if we're unhappy. Jesus, Jesus, I'm still looking for the answers, though I know that I won't find them here tonight. Jesus, Jesus, could you call me if you find the time? Maybe we can meet for coffee and work it out. Maybe then I'll understand what it's all about.
That was a short bumper. Thank you, Matt, for making that for me. There's a lot of you. Well, good morning. My name is David. I'm one of the pastors here on staff. If you're new, I would love to meet you, but I might not have time because I have a meeting after this service. But I will be here next week. So we're doing something confusing, and I'm going to try to explain it succinctly. We're kicking off a new series today. That series is called Insurrection of the Crucified. We're going to reclaim the word insurrection. Too soon. No, but really, it's going to be this series is a walk through the book of Mark, but not just any stroll through the book of Mark as one does. It is specifically a walk through the book of Mark through the eyes or through the pen, proverbially speaking, of a man named Theodore Jennings. He was a theologian, pastor. He was a lot of things. You're going to learn quite a bit about him today, actually. And then next week, we're going to start another new series. That's not this one. But it's also not a standalone. No, I know it's confusing. It'll make sense as you experience it, because you all are such good at attending. You'll be here every week, and it'll be great. No, but what we're going to be doing is in between the series that we do periodically throughout the year. So like we'll finish one, like we just finished last week, our problematic series. The series was called Problematic. There's nothing problematic about the series. In fact, it was excellent. But in between our series, we're going to be taking a break to walk slowly through the book of Mark over the course of a year or more through the eyes of Ted Jennings. My main motivation for this, as I've told many of you this morning, is so that when your friends, family, whoever sort of look side-eyed at you around whatever table you're sitting with them about the church that you attend, you can tell them, no, we take the Bible very seriously. In fact, we're going to be in the book of Mark for an entire year. So... But to kick this off, before we really, we're going to spend a little bit of time in the book of Mark this morning, but what I really want to do this morning is to sort of whet your appetite for this journey by introducing you to our guide for this journey. And in order to introduce you to the guide, Ted Jennings, I thought we could use a guide for the guide. And that person is Shay, who you just saw a moment ago, who is like a smarter, more musically talented version of myself. And which is a enviable combination. But I'm going to invite Shay back up. If you would welcome him once again. At Watershed, we're different than other churches. We only let...
I didn't know you were funny. You're funny.
Turns out, we only let straight white dudes be up on stage supervised.
Yeah.
So it's like the opposite of what most of you experience. Only women pastors get to be up here by themselves.
It's good. Actually, I'll be shocked. Like, I have a shock collar on. You can't see it, but if I say anything off the rails, then I'll get shocked slightly. Yeah. Just to keep you in check.
Anything patriarchal or anything. No. Not too worried about
the
Shay.
time's going. We better go.
Yeah, no. Okay. So one fun thing about Shay, I'm just sort of giving up on y'all's afternoon at this point.
Only one?
I know that there's a football game today, but one fun thing about Shay is that he's got, there's a charismatic gene to him, like Pentecostal gene that I don't share. And so in honor of that, we're going to go 3 hours this morning.
Yeah.
No, but Shay, the real reason you're here, one of the many reasons you're here is because Theodore Jennings, who I've made reference to, was one of your professors. You knew him well. You studied under him during your PhD, which you have. A PhD, you have that.
I do.
Which is really cool. But to kind of just start out this morning, in whatever words come to you by the Spirit, because you're kind of Pentecostal, in whatever words come to you, who is Shay Watts to Shay Watts, and more importantly, who is Theodore Jennings to Shay Watts?
Thank y'all for having me. I've been following the Watershed story for some years now, actually, when my spouse, Catherine, and I moved here in 2018. So I know a lot about the church. I know a lot of folks from the church, and this is the first time I've stepped foot in the church. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you for opening your doors, so to speak. Who is Shay Watts to Shay Watts? That is probably a question for my therapist, but I'm a Pentecostal, evangelical student of theology who...
Arsenal fan?
Huh?
Arsenal fan.
Arsenal fan, yeah.
I don't know.
Extra jewels in the crown in heaven. But I'm a musician, I'm a spouse, I'm a lover of soccer or football. I think that conversations like these really matter. And I'm grateful for people like Ted Jennings, who came alongside me when I was trying to figure out what this means, why am I here, but more specifically, what do I do with my experiences in the church? How do I make sense of God in the world, God in me, bringing along all of this theological baggage of growing up, the good, the bad, and the ugly of growing up Pentecostal. So I wrote a dissertation on the history of Pentecostalism as a subversive political movement, at least early on, before things went off the rails, so to speak.
That's so cool.
So I guess I'm just going to talk. Yeah, I'm kidding. I'm messing with it. So Ted Jennings is Methodist. Some things, I think you have a quote about him, but he was a chain-smoking, karaoke-singing, Willie Nelson, leather-wearing, gay, outlaw, cowboy, badass theologian. Yeah. And we really are missing his presence with us. And by with us, I mean the world, and more specifically, the theological community. Methodists and Pentecostals have some sort of weird connection to each other. And so I think that was part of our bond, was he was my instructor for New Testament or the Gospels, as well as a directed study on Jacques Derrida and ethics. He was a big fan of sort of French continental philosophy. You know, you hear terms like deconstruction, that's where that comes from. And so that's a little bit about Ted. Ted was married for over 40 years to a woman named Rana. And when he died, he had a stroke in 2020. And I think this shows who Ted was. He immediately recognized it and he said, "Rana, I'm having a stroke and I just want you to know I love you." And they stayed together even when he came out. He stayed Methodist even when it wasn't easy for him. And so he had to write theology from sort of the margins of his own tradition. He felt very much estranged from that. And so I brought some books by Ted. He authored over 12 books. And I brought some of them here so he could be with us, not just in here, but here. He started really thinking about theology after what's called the death of God theology. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with that. You probably know Nietzsche said, God is dead. And what he was saying is sort of absolute statements about God, absolute truth is dead, which can actually be a very generative thing. And so Dr. Jennings took the death of God theology and used it as a way to return to the radical vision as laid out in the teachings, life, and death of Jesus. And so that's what this book is about. Sorry to segue to Mark. We can wait for a second. But Insurrection of the Crucified is Ted's rendering of a text that is the earliest of the Gospels and also, I think, the most radical. And so Ted was radicalized by his moment, by what was going on in the world, such as like Vietnam, things, exigencies, needs, violence of the world going on. I'm sure we can't relate to that at all, but that was sarcasm. That's my love language. But so Ted was radicalized at this time, and so his writings and reflection on the Gospel of Mark show a man who was struggling. A man who was struggling with identity of being closeted, but also a man who was struggling to reclaim a Christianity that was dead to him, and I think should be dead, and I think we should let it die. Mainly fundamentalism and authoritarian interpretations of the gospel that say this and this way only. Ted very much, and in this text and in his life, lived to queer that, and even wrote a book on queer sexual ethics, and wrote a book about the Greek influence of Western homophobia, and in that way, I think, contributed to a living word that goes beyond the page, that seeks to set free the captives.
So you've already alluded to this, and yeah, we will kind of land the plane by getting to talking a little bit more about Insurrection of the Crucified, the book that Ted wrote on Mark. But you alluded to this. We have a quote. This quote was from one of Ted's colleagues following his death, and it sort of gets into, and what I want to kind of riff on for a moment after we take a moment to read this quote, is just the sort of the depth and breadth of his work and legacy. You've already kind of hinted at a number of things,
sorry.
but oh no, you're good. This is good. I told you to follow the Spirit.
Let's pretend it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It was totally on purpose.
Yeah. We rehearsed this.
We did, clearly. Clearly we did.
No, but let's go ahead and throw that up there. I'll read through it real quick. So again, this was well, it's in the quote. I'll just read it. So in the days following his death, here are some of the terms that his being Ted, his students from around the world used to describe him. Fierce, gentle, rigorous, a vibrant light, razor sharp, passionate, devoted, of elegant wisdom. Can't pronounce that one. You do it. You're the PhD.
Inimitable.
Nailed it.
Inimitability, like Nemo.
Yeah, like Nemo. Yeah.
Yeah. I live in an inimitable me.
Prophet, philosopher, sage, radical, cool, authentic, unsettlingly provocative, and relentlessly encouraging, generous, prolific, a wonderful and queerful soul, compassionate.
Yeah.
PhD.
Clearly.
Hit that one.
And in fact, say it. Look at that.
PhD?
See? Yeah, PhD.
Pentecostal then.
Yeah, that's the gift. That's the gift of tongues right there.
Yeah. Disciple of Jesus Christ. Scandalous, unrelenting, unapologetic, liberating, a formidable teacher, mentor, viscerally elegant, wonderful pastoral presence. Beyond these wonderful affirmations is the witness of person after person, LGBTQ students in particular, saying in one way and another, his teaching saved my life. So it was important to me, not just that we go through the book of Mark. I'm barely qualified to lead you through that anyway. But even more so, I thought it would be meaningful for more reasons than I can list to have this person sort of in spirit guide us through the book of Mark. And I've known Shay for a long time, and so I knew that Shay studied with Ted, and so I thought before we dive into the text, before we kind of take the next however many months it takes to unpack this gospel account, we should learn a little bit more about who it is that was going to be leading and what his legacy was. So, yeah.
Are we marking now?
We can mark.
Or do you want to talk about more of his broader work?
I don't know. Do you have more to say? I know you have
I have a lot to say.
More to say than we have time for.
Let me say this. I think it's important now, maybe more so than in most of our lifetimes, to reclaim and approach critically, ask hard questions of our tradition and of the text. And I think that starting in Mark is the way to do it, because as the sort of OG gospel, if you will, we get, I think, the least embellished view or look at Jesus. Who was Jesus from the Galilee, the land of rabble-rousing rebels and false messiahs and all of this. And so I just want to say that I know many of you probably like me come from either an evangelical or some sort of different background, and that's what brought you to this beautiful place called Watershed, in which a bunch of unicorns are gathered, and a gathering of unicorns is called a blessing. You're welcome.
I didn't know what it was going to be. So
clearly we rehearsed really well.
Yeah, I was ready to chime in, but
so maybe the best way to do this, David, and let me just say you are qualified to do this work, okay? No more No more self-effacing jokes. You're done.
Self-deprecating humor is half my personality.
Yeah, but
But I have another half, so I'll lean into that.
Okay, yeah, lean into the other half. Lean into it. So let me offer some background to the text, and I'm quoting Ted, but I'm also gonna say some things that we think, but we can't know, right? Because ultimately, the study of theology and biblical studies is not an exact science, right? No matter who tells you there's a formula and you got to believe this and the Roman road and Jesus said it just like this, no one was going around with a pencil and writing, what did he say? Blessed are the cheesemakers, right? That's how that happens in the life of Brian. And so let me just say first that the Gospel of Mark is an anonymous text. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, guess what? Are all anonymous texts. We don't know who wrote this. Justin Martyr, one of the early church sort of what we call apologists, writing and defending Christianity as not atheism because they didn't believe in the Roman gods, imperial gods, he quotes a lot from what he calls the memoirs of the apostles. And so we think that's probably where some of the authorship was influenced. Around 160, 180 Common Era, Irenaeus comes along and actually says,
there will be a test on all the names.
Yeah, Irenaeus. Good luck spelling it. But he came along and said, I heard it from a person who heard it from a person that these texts were written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And why do you think that would be important to have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John's names on the Gospels? Y'all can talk back to me. I like that. Apostles, right? Authority, right? So if you're writing, Justin Martyr's writing from the memoirs of the apostles, it makes sense then that we'd want Matthew, Mark, and Luke's name and John, their names on the Gospels. One of the caveats here is that Mark actually was a disciple of Peter, right? So the legend is that when Paul got pissed off and sent John Mark away because he was kind of flaky, that's my word, that's not the original Greek, but Peter took him under his wing, and supposedly the legend, it's a nice story actually, right? Like, John Mark gets another chance. We're people of the second chance. Come down to the altar. Anyways, so, sorry. So that is why we say the Gospel of Mark. But it's puzzling because Peter looks like a complete imbecile, as do all the disciples in the Gospel of Mark. But I want to say that the way that Ted treated this anonymous source of the text is actually to use the pronoun her for the writer. And he does that because the Bible or the scriptures are patriarchal, written by men to men in a day and age where men were head of the household, the pater familias, the boss, so to speak. And so Ted is subverting that by calling the author of Mark her. And I think that is such a great insight into who he was as a person and into his sort of subtle, gentle, but subversive thing about it. So that's a little background about...
Oh, yeah. I feel like I cut you off there.
No. I mean, I have structure and themes we could talk about, but is there anything you'd like to
I was just going to add,
offer?
You alluded to this distinction, but... like within the academic world of Christianity, broadly speaking, there's two streams, and there's tons of overlap between them, but there's theology, systematic theology, constructive theology, and then what might be called biblical theology or biblical studies. More often than not, the biblical study side of thing is more concerned with the history of it. This is where you get into sort of like critical approaches to not only just what did the text mean to them then, but treating the text as a historical text. Not so much that the text is telling us what actually happened, but treating it as a product of its time, a historical artifact or a historical document, and sort of trying to unpack it and learn more about the context and sort of putting it up against other works that would have come out during that time period and things like that. Whereas theology or systematic theology, constructive theology is to oversimplify, all right, less so, what did it mean to them then? What could it mean or what should it mean for us today? And part of amongst many other things, what I love about Ted's work is he's coming at it as a theologian, but he's trying to marry those two streams a little bit, giving what I think is a very up-to-date sort of intellectually responsible historical approach to the text, but very intentionally constructive, very, very much asking the question, what could it mean for us today in light of what it meant for them then? And I think he does that, bringing all, to bear all of these intersections of identity and experience and education and conviction that he had sort of into that reading, which I think is really meaningful.
Yeah, that was brilliantly said. Give me some of that.
Thanks, PhD band.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I'll just say Ted would consider himself a professor, so systematic and constructive. Systematic is like dealing with the doctrines you've been handed down, so like a doctrine of God, the doctrine of the Trinity, all the ologies, ecclesiology, soteriology, pneumatology, boringology, all those. And so systematic really tries to arrange the system in a particular way. Constructive theology, I think, is more generative because it says, do we really need this? Right? Are we really going to argue over and split our church communion over whether or not we use the word person or essence, or whether or not God is a man or a woman, or right? So like all these conversations, we're wrestling with systematic theology. So I appreciate you naming that. And Ted, he was an expert also in Greek culture. So a lot of times biblical studies focus on the text in which, or the language in which it was written. So the Hebrew Bible, what some Christians call the Old Testament, or the New Testament, Christian scriptures being written in Greek. And part of the fun and challenge of that is Jesus probably spoke Aramaic, right? These are written in Greek. We don't know who's writing them, so they have different writing styles. We might call it death of the author. Irenaeus said Matthew's gospel was written in Hebrew when it clearly wasn't. And the fact that we don't have any of the originals. We have some fragments of things. And so what we've had to lean on is tradition. And so what I think is happening in the moment in the church, as well as what Ted invites us to do, is to make the most of what we have, to ask important questions that ultimately reveal a gospel, a good news to the poor, and not just some good talking points to turn into an ideology and check the belief board and walk out on Sunday and Monday through Saturday. Your life looks nothing like the radical rabble-rouser from the Galilee. Oh, that's new. That's new for me.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a preacher. Like I get, but I'm passionate about this. I'll say. Thank you for clapping. Wow, I feel almost Pentecostal again. Wow, who untied my bow tie? Who stole my Honda? That's what you say when you want to fake speaking in tongues. Should have bought a Honda, could have bought a Hyundai. Anyways, all right. Pentecostals see me after. I have a good therapist. So, can I talk a little bit about the structure and theme?
Please, yes.
Appreciate this one invite, and I will not be invited back. That's okay.
False.
So I see the timer there. So let's talk a little bit about the structure. So Ted invites us to think about the structure in a couple ways. So I said it's important to have some background on the text. It's also important to know that Paul's writings, particularly his first letter to the church, 1 Thessalonians, is before any gospel. That's in the early 50s. So this is written probably around 60, we think, maybe. So this is the earliest gospel that we know of. And this is written after the deaths of Peter and Paul. Kind of two important figures, right, in the early church. So we might realize there's probably some fear. There's lots of trauma and violence and what's going to happen now that is, I think, embedded in the text. And I think if you're aware of that, it kind of seeps out in different places. So it's written after that. And then there's this interesting movement going on in the text where here and there, so like here being in the Galilee, like hanging out with Jewish folks, but then using what is called the Sea, which is a lake of Galilee. Jesus kind of goes to the other side, to the others, to those folks, the pagans or the Gentiles, right? And does some stuff over there that Jesus doesn't do over here. But if you read the text, it's like clearly it's an action story. It's not a text for systematic theology. But and Jesus did this, but then immediately he did this. And then he got pissed off and he went over to this place and he like got on the boat and went over and was like, none of y'all get it, let's come back over here. And so there's this constant moving between Jewish and pagan, we might say diverse cultures that Jesus is doing his ministry and doing good works, sort of vacillating between the two. And so I think that movement, that constant movement, gives it that action feel. That gives it a sort of a quick read, right? Any readers in here, add me on Goodreads, let's go. So it's a text that reads quickly and actually probably would have been heard in one sitting because a lot of people were illiterate and couldn't read. So they had to hear the good news, not necessarily read it. And so that was important. And last thing I'll say before maybe some themes, and feel free to jump in here with some structure stuff, but Ted Jennings, I remember sitting in his class and he said, without the Gospel of Mark, Christianity would not exist. Pretty weighty statement. And it's not just because Mark is the first. That's important, because we still have Paul's writings and his theological sort of walking the road as he goes, making it up as he goes, making connections as he goes, etc. But he wasn't a disciple of Jesus, right? He got knocked off or on his ass, I don't know. But he got knocked off and blinded, right? He has this conversion experience.
He might have been on an ass and then fell onto his ass.
Yeah. I like that we can say.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right.
There's a minimum and
yeah.
a maximum.
Oh, is that what that is on the screen?
Yeah, we're kind of hovering in between it right now.
Okay, so, but Mark actually informs a lot of the other Gospels. So a lot of the stories you see in Matthew and Luke, not really John, in this what we call the synoptic Gospels, the seeing Gospels, the ones that maybe we can somehow reconcile historically, whereas John is purely, I think, a systematic theology book about who Christ is. But Mark really informs not just the Gospels that come later, but the early church communities. And so the early church communities are reading, or at least having read to them, bits and pieces of Mark. So that's structurally. Do you want to say anything to that, or you want to move on to themes? Because I see our time.
Let's do themes.
Themes for 100, please.
Themes for 100, please, yeah.
So the big theme in Mark is, what do we do now? What now? That feels pretty relevant to me. I don't know about y'all. What now? What do we do? Because if you read it closely, you actually see that Mark is sort of the gospel about where the disciples get it wrong a lot of the time, if not all the time. The later gospels kind of clean up some of these stories. But as I said earlier, Peter looks like a complete imbecile. Gets called Satan. Devil woman, And so clearly they're not getting it. And Jesus grows frustrated multiple times. How long do I have to be with you? Are you listening to me? Can you hear anything that I'm saying? Do you hear what you're saying? Right? So Jesus is very spicy. Do we still say spicy, right? Yeah. Jesus is very spicy in this. And so what now, right? And so to kind of know what now, we need to know what was then. And so the story's looking forward, but it's retelling the story of Jesus in such a way that invites us into the present, right? And to think about the future and not be, which against 2,000 years of church history and theology, not be wed so much to the past, right, of what happened. I loved the creed today, P.S. Loved that idea because the creeds, the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, those are like the foundation of Christian unity worldwide and historically in the church. Like the creeds were the thing under Constantine, in particular the Nicene Creed. That's what so many people say together. I like the idea. Keep that woke creed around, maybe shorten it a little bit. Keep it around and say it together. Why? Because it's looking forward, not just to the past. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah. No, stop. That was a pity clap, and I don't appreciate it.
Are we? I don't want to jump ahead, but I know kind of where where we're going to land.
Yeah,
Is
let's
there-
do that.
We're going to land the plane? We're going to start to land the plane?
Let's land the plane.
All right.
It feels
Hit
good.
band. We're beginning to land the plane.
This is that subtle part where you come up. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Very subtle, very subtle. I totally don't see you right now. Wow.
so
That's why the lights are down, right? So you can't see them.
exactly, yeah. So many of you don't know this, but if you've been here for any amount of time, you've actually already heard me teach from Ted's book on the book of Mark. I frequently reference the fact that Mark is my favorite gospel, and I frequently reference the fact that it is my favorite gospel because I love how it ends. The original ending, there was an addendum added on later, we'll talk about it, but the what we understand to be or believe to be the original ending of it is sort of a cliffhanger, and almost like in honor of David Lynch, ends in sort of like a dark, twisty sort of way. It literally ends with those witnessing the empty tomb being terrified. And so I think maybe the best way to illustrate this is to just let Shay read from Ted's words about this. So go for it.
Yeah, so thank you for setting it up in that way. And what is the good news here? I think that's a good question to ask in any biblical text. Where's the good news in this? What now? And so, as he said, later endings were added. And as many of you know, any movie critics in here, usually when you get an alternative ending, they're just not the same, right? They're not as good. You're like, don't even watch them. But
They had like weird CGI stuff that wasn't in the original version.
right.
And
It's like, what are you
that,
trying to do? So what I love about this is it's not a text of terror, but it ends in terror. Because as Ted will say, that's the only way you can explain to the women who were the last at the cross and first at the grave, the empty tomb, what is going on? What now? And so this is verse 8, and then I'll read something. And then I want to read, to kind of tie all this up, I'd love to read a poem that was offered. So Ted died during COVID, and so in Mexico City. And so he split his time there. He taught in Korea, he taught in Mexico, he taught in Chicago, and he had family all around the world. And so when he died, one of the most painful things was that all of his students couldn't get together and just have a big I love you Ted Fest. So this is verse 8, and then I'm going to read his last paragraph and offer this poem as sort of a way of thinking about Ted as the end being yet just another beginning. And so the what now is we go back to where it all started, right? The other gospels will say return to the Galilee. Why? Because that's where it all started. We're different though. When we go back, we're not the same, right? The story has changed and there's hope yet to be found, but we're not the same. So when we tell this story, when we embrace our faith again, when we come to Watershed and we try to reclaim and all of this, we might hear some of the same language, we might explore some of the same gospels, but we're not the same. And that, to me, is the good news. So when they went out and fled from the tomb, for trembling and astonishment had overcome them, and they said nothing to anyone, for they were terrified. Ted writes, the narrative ends in terror. No other ending is possible. For the resurrection of the crucified is not a Palm Sunday procession, still less an Easter parade. It means the crumbling of the ways by which we habitually give our lives meaning in this world, the structures of work and family, the institutions of conventional morality and religious worship that give rhythm and order to our lives. It means the enclaves of security of place and status and position in the world are blown away. It means the ways we think about life and death are turned upside down. The collapse of the structures of meaning leaves one incapable of speech. And the call to set out on this mission, knowing what must be its end until all things are changed, produces terror. They don't run because they don't understand. They run precisely because they do. And this is a stanza from Stephen Spender's poem, The Truly Great. Near the snow, near the sun, in the highest fields, see how those names are feted by the waving grass and by whispers of wind in the listening sky. The names of those who in their lives fought for life, who bore at their hearts the fire's center. Born of the sun, they traveled a short while toward the sun and left the vivid air signed with their honor. Ted is a part of the cloud of witnesses that surrounds us today, that encourages us today, that hears our question, our pain, our trauma, our struggle, what now, and invites us to return to where it all began, because God is doing a new thing.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk.
Hello, my name is Jonathan. Read these first lyrics here of this next song, which we've sung many times. There's no shadow you won't light up. And then it goes on, and it says, coming after me. And I want to get us to think about that word shadow, which for me, maybe you're like me, was these shadows that we did, maybe shadows that we were trying to hide. But I want us to think about it in a different way and maybe reclaim a couple other ones. Because maybe there's shadows hiding from us. Hi, Kim. That's so in therapy. One of the concepts is that we have a true self, and it's in here, it's unwounded, it's unharmed, it's pure. And that in the world we create this ego that we present. It's our public self, and we craft it and carve it, and it's what everybody sees. And then behind us, as the light shines at us, we have a shadow that we can't really see. People may glimpse it and see it happen around us and to us. It's our flaws, our shame, our brokenness, our unhealed parts, our unwoven parts, our unintegrated parts. And I want us to think about that here. Those parts of us that we don't see. And that as God is pursuing us through our lives, that He's wanting us to see those, to heal them, to unashame them, to integrate them, and to love them, and to love. Look around at everyone in here. Just look real quick. Look, we all have shadows, and they're all there. None of us see them. So in grace, if we can see all of that, and God chasing that for all of us.
You'll stand and sing with us for this last song.
There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I don't have to
over each other.
It's your prayer.
One more time. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Thank you so much for being here today, for worshiping with us, and for listening to all these wonderful teachings and speakings. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Go forth and have a great Super Bowl.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye.